Hello everybody, this is Michael from Function Tiles, and today I want to walk you through a feature or functionality capable in some common slicers called variable layer height. Now this is available in Prusa Slicer and SuperSlicer, maybe a few other printers. I think some of the bamboo slicers have it, possibly. I haven't absolutely verified because I don't utilize a bamboo. This is also available in Cura. It's called adaptive layer height. It's not as functional. It kind of like does its own logic, and you can't configure, you can't fine tune exactly where it does it or what it doesn't do it. What variable layer height does allows you to decrease your print time by printing heights, by printing layer heights on surfaces that aren't visible to the eye. For example, this part here, the lower base, this isn't visible to the eye, and you can decrease the print time of this tile by decreasing the layer height that it prints at. But unfortunately, I don't really do it because I'm a little bit worried about the recess holes, and I want these to print at 0.2 layer height. So actually, I'm not going to do that. But you could do that on a lot of standard dungeon tiles, and people do. What I'm mostly interested in is increasing the resolution or the visual quality of top surfaces. For example, this flat top rocky kind of cavern parts available here, and the tops of the walls available here. So I'm going to configure my slicer to print those at a different layer height, higher resolution, 0.1, than the rest of the common layer height, which will be 0.2 for the rest of the tile. So to set this up, we only have to change a couple of settings that you would probably already be commonly using. In your Prusa Slicer or SuperSlicer, you want to come to your print settings category, and you want to change horizontal shells, solid layers top to 10. Now I know this seems like a lot of top layers. You want this for this functionality. So just trust me there. The other thing we need to go to printer settings and go to extruder 1 on your printer settings and set a minimum and maximum layer height limit. You're going to set a minimum layer height limit of 0.1 and a maximum of 0.3. Those have to be done in order for, you have to have a difference in the layer height limits, because essentially you're allowing the software to configure parts of whatever parts you choose or designate at 0.1, between 0.1 and 0.3. So you can do 0.2. So 0.2 will be the standard, and that'll make sense here in a second. The next thing you're going to want to do is get a tile that has texture top surfaces. So this isn't really worth it, maybe, but for blank clay tiles or tiles that just have grids on it, because it does increase your print time by quite a bit. So you're going to want a tile that has a good amount of top texture that you want to look sharp. If you are looking for some of those, I have several available on my Patreon, and my Patreon will be linked in the video. Now that you have your model loaded, and it doesn't matter if it has walls or if it's just a flat texture tile, I'm just using one with walls as an example to show how to configure it in different ports. So highlight your model and click this this vertical variable layer height category right here. That'll take you to a menu, and you'll be able to see that you're in that menu, and it'll say variable layer height. And when you drag your cursor along these bars here on the side, you'll be able to see exactly where you're kind of defining. So be really careful here, because once you click right or left on this category, you're changing layer height. So anywhere gray, it shows up in this image, it's going to print at 0.2 layer height. Anywhere that configures green, so for this top surface right here, where you see that yellow highlighting, that's exactly where I'm dialed in right here. And I want to left click with my mouse button and let this come all the way over here to 0.1 layer height. And I want to drag it down for as much as I want layer height to print. So now I've done that total top surface. So now my slicer is telling my file to print at 0.2 layer height until we get to this position, what's highlighted in green, and then it's going to switch to printing at 0.1 layer height. So it's going to do 10 layers at 0.1 layer height, and that is going to look a lot better visually. It's going to have a lot higher definition than printing this at 0.2 layer height. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to come through here, and we're going to highlight until that yellow section gets to the top surfaces of these bottom tiles. So we can tell it's starting to enact right about here. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to highlight green, and we're going to pull down until we've highlighted all of the top surface. And now all of these top surfaces are going to be printed in 0.1 layer height. It might even go a little bit higher than that. So if we look at this tile, now we can tell that everything in gray is going to print at 0.2 layer height. The green surfaces are going to print in 0.1 layer height. Now, if we were trying to save some time, I haven't tested this. I probably won't. I'm just going to print it until. But if you're trying to save some of the time that you're increasing by increasing these parts, which are going to print slower, you can pick other sections and highlight with your right-click mouse button, taking them into the red, and it'll change and it'll show in red, and you'll know that anything visible in red will print at 0.3 layer height. Unless you don't bring the slider all the way over, and then it'll actually print. You can see here in the categories, like right here, 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, but as this click comes over, it starts to transition to like 0.116307 all the way until it gets back to 2. That's unimportant. It's not going to hurt anything. So once you've done this, you simply slice it and send it to your printer. I'm going to do one more example just so you can see how it goes. So I'm going to open up one more tile. This is a volcanic tile, and I want to configure, this is just a flat tile, and I want to configure this, all the top surfaces of this tile to print at 0.1. So I'm going to drag this slider all the way over to the right, or to the left, and I'm going to drag down until that whole top surface is highlighted in green. So now when this prints, it'll print all the tile at 0.2 except for the top surface, which will print at 0.1. Hopefully I can cut into the end of this video a couple of printed examples to show you the difference between utilizing this feature or not. And I hope you found it helpful. Please consider subscribing, liking, and ringing the bell for notification. And check out my Patreon at patreon.com/FunctionTiles. Thank you. So I'm just splicing in a video example of a tile on the right printed with 0.2 millimeter layer height and a tile on the left pointed at 1 millimeter layer height, utilizing the variable layer height that I showed in the video. So the tile on the left has a superior top surface and finish quality. I hope this helps in your printing experience. Thank you.